to a blockbuster Friday night trade as The Athletic reports that the New York Knicks have agreed to a deal to acquire Karl-Anthony Towns from the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Knicks will be sending back a package that includes Julius Randle and Donte DiVincenzo. Towns has spent his entire 9-year career in Minnesota, averaging over 20 points per game for the last 8 seasons, and last season helped lead the T-Wolves to the Western Conference Finals. And for more on this shocking news, we bring in CBS Sports NBA insider Bill Ryder. And Bill, I don't know about you, but I was sitting there in the control room thinking, oh, this is a great Friday night. I'm going to see if Miami's going to get upset by Virginia Tech. Then all of a sudden I see the report, and I literally had to look at it for like 10 seconds. Is this real? Did they really make this trade? So from your perspective, what was your reaction seeing this news?
Yeah, first reaction is yours, Chris. It's a jaw dropper. It's a shocker. It'll wake you up on a Friday night, especially on the East Coast, where it's a little bit later than out here in LA. And then with a little chance to sort of try to process it, it at least fits some of the talk around the NBA. Certainly in Minnesota, there were a lot of concerns about their financial flexibility going forward with the second apron and the massive contracts they've already put out there and that they're going to have to. There's also an ownership battle. Who's going to control that team in a lawsuit that's underway? So some questions about whether or not there's just going to be the money to finance the team as it is. So this creates some financial flexibility. And for the Knicks, there's certainly been some rumblings that they had come to the conclusion, as much as having Julius Randle back in the mix would be great, they had a great season last year largely without him. They made that run through the postseason without him. And so it's a shocker, but it sort of makes sense from a Timberwolves perspective because this gives them some financial flexibility and a little more depth. They were sort of handcuffed with what they could do. And for New York City and for the Knicks, I like it for both teams, Chris, but I love it for New York because Julius Randle is someone they thought maybe they could do without. And they get, obviously, they're losing Donte DiVincenzo, which is a big loss. But Cat is such an offensive boost to a team that's already stocked up and loaded and looked like a contender before this trade in the Eastern Conference.
So when it comes to the Knicks, right, and how they stack up against the Celtics, who won the NBA title this year, does this move inch them closer to being right there on the doorstep or looking eye to eye with Boston? Because on the other side, Bill, we talked about it off camera, Karl-Anthony Towns, defense, that's not his calling card. His calling card is to be able to stretch the floor, right? He can really shoot. He can also take you off the dribble. But defensively, with Tom Thibodeau, Tom Thibodeau is defense.
You better do it. Yeah. No, you said it like he can, and I'll say it, he doesn't. And with Tibbs, it's he better. It's a gamble. I think it's a really impressive gamble. To answer your question, I do think, yes, when you have an arms race, when you have somebody pulling away in a competitive circumstance, and that's the Boston Celtics, and let the Sixers in too. We'll see what they do and what they're about. But bringing in Paul George was a huge move by Daryl Morey. You got to respond if you want to be in that sort of at that level. And the Knicks have done that. They did it with Bridges, and they do it again with Cat. So yes, I think that they're on the level, Chris, with Boston, at least on paper. Now, you don't win championships on paper. Ask the Boston Celtics. It took a lot of heartbreak and a lot of near misses and a finals appearance a couple years ago where they didn't succeed to kind of get there as a team. But on paper, I think that this gives the New York Knicks the firepower to compete with anybody in the Eastern Conference. And if they can figure it out, part of that being the defensive realities for Cat and what that head coach wants in New York, I think they can compete with anybody in the NBA now.
So Knicks fans certainly love hearing that. And of course, they definitely want Cat to embody what Tibbs wants in terms of their defensive identity. When you look in the Western Conference with the T-Wolves, right, and how this changes the way we look at them, what do you think this does for their chances to get to an NBA Finals, knowing all the pros and cons that Julius Randle brings to the team? And then also, you got Donte DiVincenzo, so that adds some defensive levitility.
I'm going to give you my first reaction, and I can tell you the people I know in that Timberwolves organization are going to probably tell me I'm wrong, and so maybe they'll talk me into a different perspective tomorrow, because I haven't talked to them this evening, Chris. My first perspective is it's a really nice move for the Timberwolves in the medium term and maybe the long term. Financial flexibility. I love DiVincenzo as an added piece and a competitor and some depth. But I think it's a minor step back in the short term. They are a little bit less impressive, a little bit less dangerous have the four. As you noted, there are some questions with Julius Randle, and I think this just reflects the fact that they are going to build this team in the long term, leading to this around Anthony Edwards and around a player that can be they think, and I think we all agree, I certainly do, a top 5, top 3 player in the NBA going forward. So short term, on paper, Chris, I don't think they're as dangerous. Certainly they're starting 5 as they were. But Julius Randle is obviously offensively a weapon that you can use. We've seen him be pretty impressive when he's healthy. That Timberwolves coaches have believed that they can take guys like this and improve them a little bit. They'll point to a guy like Naz Reid. And I think DiVincenzo is an addition in terms of shooting, in terms of athleticism, in terms of winning, in terms of defense, that they're going to like in that mix. So I think the Timberwolves take a small step back maybe this year. They're still obviously one of the top 3, 4 teams. I think it's 3 in the Western Conference. But it gives them some depth and it gives them some flexibility to try to maintain this level for the long term.
So with that being said, long term, looking at both teams, who do you think has the edge in this one? Because it's not like all these players just came from college, right? They have a lot of years on them. Maybe not to the level of KD, Steph Curry, right, LeBron James, but they have picked up some miles in this game.
Look, I think it's the Knicks. Look, I think both teams can win this trade. And I know that Cat is, 29 years old. He's got 3 years left on his contract. And it's the financial realities of the new CBA are really restrictive when you have a bunch of guys. And the Knicks are all in. They are all in. But, I mean, look at that. Look at that starting 5 right there. I think that for the New York Knicks, this year, next year, maybe the year after that, the duration of Towns' contract, it makes them a team that should and I think will compete at the highest levels in the NBA. I think New York wins the trade if we're looking for a winner, and I think the Timberwolves, it's TBD, but I don't hate it for them either.
Bill Ryder breaking down the latest, a shocking trade. Donte DiVincenzo, Julius Randle going to Minnesota in exchange for Karl-Anthony Towns coming.
Hello, still on Karl-Anthony Towns. The New York Knicks and Minnesota Timberwolves are close to finalizing a significant trade involving Julius Randle and Karl-Anthony Towns, as reported by The Athletic and confirmed by ESPN on September 27th. This deal has major implications for both teams, which are looking to improve their respective weaknesses. According to the details of the trade, Randle and Donte DiVincenzo would go to Minnesota, while Towns would be sent to New York. The Knicks expect Towns to fill the void at starting center, a crucial need for the team after the injury to Mitchell Robinson. On the other hand, the Timberwolves hope that Randle, known for his offensive ability, and DiVincenzo, a reliable shooter, will bring more versatility to the roster in their quest for the Western Conference Finals. In addition to the player swap, Minnesota will also receive a protected first-round pick in the top 13 of the 2025 draft, originally owned by the Detroit Pistons and traded to the Knicks. The Charlotte Hornets were included as the third team in the negotiation, with the aim of facilitating the deal financially. In return, the Hornets are expected to receive a draft pick, although the exact details have not yet been released. The inclusion of Charlotte was one of the factors that accelerated the negotiations, which had already been taking place throughout the summer. Sources indicate that, despite the intense discussions, the conclusion of the deal could still take a few days, which caused surprise among those involved. Karl-Anthony Towns, who helped the Timberwolves reach the Western Conference Finals, was fully focused on continuing his career with the Minnesota team. ESPN sources reported that he did not expect this move, which adds an element of surprise to the deal. With an average of 22.9 points and 10.8 rebounds per game throughout his career, Towns is a dominant presence on the court. In addition, his 39.8% three-point shooting makes him one of the most versatile centers in the league. With his arrival in New York, he will reunite with Knicks coach Tom Thibodeau, whom he previously worked with during his time in Minnesota between 2016 and 2019. The hope is that Towns will help fill the void left by Mitchell Robinson, who will spend the first 2 months of the season recovering from ankle surgery. Julius Randle, a key player for the Knicks in recent seasons, has impressed, averaging 24.2 points, 9.2 rebounds, and 5.0 assists last year. However, he suffered a right shoulder injury in January that sidelined him for the rest of the season. Over the summer, Randle underwent an intensive rehabilitation process and was expected to return to full fitness at the start of the new season. Since joining the Knicks in 2019, Randle has been at his best, earning 3 All-Star and 2 All-NBA honors and being a key player in leading the team to the playoffs in 3 of the last 4 seasons. That performance underscores his importance, but it also signals the possibility of a trade, as there has been no progress on a contract extension with the New York franchise. Timberwolves coach Chris Finch, who previously worked with Randle during his stint as an assistant coach with the New Orleans Pelicans in 2018-19, is familiar with the power forward style of play. Finch hopes that Randle's addition can add a new dimension to the team, especially with his scoring and distribution ability. In addition, the arrival of Donte DiVincenzo also promises to add more firepower to the Minnesota roster, as the player had a standout season with 283 three-pointers, a career high. The Knicks and Timberwolves will meet in New York for a preseason game on October 13th, and the first regular season meeting between the two teams is scheduled for December 19th in Minneapolis. Those games will be an early opportunity to see how these trades impact the team's dynamics. The trade, if confirmed, could redefine the fate of both franchises, adding new elements to their strategies for the next season. Thanks for watching. Leave your comment and don't forget to subscribe. Cheers and see you next time.